Our focus determines our reality. And our focus, what is important to us, is always determined by ego or love. If we are motivated by fears, that is, by our beliefs, doubts and expectations, they will distort our reality and divert our focus from the truth. Because our focus, our head, is like a compass. It can only be turned in one direction. We determine our direction, that is, what is important to us. Consciously or unconsciously. Actually, in the vast majority, unconsciously. And as soon as it is unconsciously, it is the wrong way. Due to our egoistic needs, our whole life can be subordinated to only one form of realization because in it, we find the greatest satisfaction or the greatest value for our ego. The goal is not necessarily to blame, but the problem is that exclusive orientation towards that one goal and neglecting the completeness and maturity we should strive for. Or even worse, we have no focus under the influence of our fears and we don't know what to do, and that's why we won't find out who we are. Both ways lead us away from truth and clarity. If our compass is influenced by doubt and resentment, we will go in the wrong direction. If we refuse to take responsibility for our life and blame others, our compass is again in the wrong direction. As a result, we don't have time to focus on more important things, such as getting to know ourselves, because even getting to know yourselves takes time and effort. In order to direct our focus in the right direction, we must consciously set goals. Small or big, but correct and true. To become aware and not allow the ego and its challenges to dictate our life. And the goal has to be aware and conscious. And we need to have courage to assign and fulfill goals. Small goals, like consciously choosing your words, or finishing what we started. Or big and challenging goals, such as taking responsibility for your own life, or opening the company to get a debt experience. Or the hardest personal goals, such as ending relationships that limits us, or quitting our job to dedicate ourselves to the path we are certain is ours. Or stop relying on anything other than yourselves and to become curious and try to comprehend clarity. We can and should set up 100 goals to become emotionally mature and fulfill the meaning of our life. Because these goals are our beacon in the fog. That what navigates us when we don't know where to go. We are on the stage in this theater called life, and we don't know what role is meant for us and where we should go. And that is why it is extremely important that we set the right goals based on creativity and selfless motivation, because it is love that will lead us out of the fog into the light and into the maturity. If we make it our goal to satisfy our ego, we should not be surprised when we wake up in the state of ego and when we don't know where we are going. And that is why the whole challenge of today's society, because our goals are socially conditioned by egoistic urges. Egoism, as such, is the social standard. Hence, so much suffering and loneliness, because we never even became aware of and questioned socially imposed goals. We have never honestly even asked ourselves what exactly motivates us and whether it is right. However, whether we want to submit to socially imposed goals is, as always, a personal, not a social responsibility. So, let's honestly ask ourselves, what are our goals? Ego satisfaction or gathering experiences? And again, it is okay if we don't have immediate answer and direction. That is why we need, little by little, to follow the truth. And if we have enough courage for it, our path will show itself. It just takes time and attention to recognize it. And it is okay if we set the wrong goal and if we fail to achieve the right goal. It's okay if we miss it or give in. It is love to forgive ourselves. Let's just be aware of it and try again. Self-confidence can also come from the ego, where the feeling of superiority can be replaced with the feeling of self-confidence that arises from love. The only difference between them is fragility. The feeling of superiority that arises from an aggressive ego is most often stimulated by the external advantages that a person achieves in front of others. This gives rise to a sense of self-importance and narcissism. Usually, the above derives from common advantages in standard socially determined characteristics such as more money than average, above average beauty, general intellect, business status, or physical strength. And sometimes even from a pure illusion of the above with no basis in reality. It is a sense of importance where everyone else is actually worse than us or has less than us, and that's why we feel better. Such self-confidence disappears and the person breaks down faced with a bigger ego or with love. The above can be solved only by letting go of your ego, changing the focus from I to we, which will change our attitude from arrogance to sovereignty, a very big difference to a mature I. The lack of self-confidence caused by a passive ego comes from the fear that constantly echoes in the head. It is that voice that tells us that we can't, won't make it, are less worthy, that others are better, and that happiness is only for others. But it's not us, it's just our ego again. And when we do not act for a long time, the ego begins to resemble us. The only way to silence it is to have the courage to follow the truth and to expose ourselves, change, take risk, and face our fears, because that is the only way to silence the passive ego. On the other hand, when we overcome our ego challenges and ego fears, and thus live in the equilibrium of love for ourselves and others, we realize true self-confidence and self-respect. We don't need to impose it and show it publicly, because we know that we rely only on ourselves, so we can't stumble. From this comes the clarity that we are sufficient and that other people's opinion is not important, because it is exactly that, just an opinion. And we must not mistake self-confidence with the self-importance people display when socializing at work or in private. It is just public self-awareness, where people rationally understand the importance of self-confidence and display it publicly, consciously or unconsciously. It has nothing to do with their actual state of self-confidence. Gratitude is a currency, a natural measuring unit of maturity. The more mature a person is, the more grateful they are. Gratitude is a direct manifestation of life in love. Envy, greed, sadness, anger, rage, and all other emotions of the state of ego are pure ingratitude and misunderstanding of life itself. Gratitude can be assessed relatively easily in each person. As we said, the strongest ego cannot show even the basic gratitude for the good things it has in life. And there are always some, no matter how dark it seems. By starting to feel gratitude for good things without the need to remind ourselves, we matured further and reached a new level. And when we feel gratitude even for bad experiences in our life, or simply because we exist, we can say that we have realized gratitude as a state of love. This clarity results from overcoming ego fears that no longer prevents our contact with the soul. The last level of gratitude is to live that same gratitude. When we feel gratitude for everything that has been given to us so strongly that we are ready to unselfishly submit our whole life to sharing, feeling a strong motivation and satisfaction in it. When our gratitude is manifested through selfless actions and not verbal expressions of the current state of mind, It is necessary to realize that gratitude is a consequence, and as such, it is impossible to practice it like any other manifestation. We can become aware of the importance of it and think about it, but as soon as we stop thinking about it, we will return to the default state, wherever it is. Gratitude quickly passes if it is conditioned from the outside and not natural to the person. Therefore, let's understand that gratitude, like joy and any other manifestation of love, can only be earned. We can only come to know it by following the truth. If we try to practice gratitude with affirmations, let's try to be grateful for the negative and bad things in life. That's the right thing to do. Let's try to gain clarity by contemplating what we should have learned from them and why we should be grateful for them. Gratitude for good things should be understood anyway. The ego cannot exist in the present moment. If our thoughts are turned to the past and how it is used to be better, or if we regret a reaction from a few years ago, we are watching our passive ego at work. When we are angry because a friend accidentally spilled a bottle of wine on our favorite couch, we live in the past. The moment we get angry, the wine has already been spilled and is in the past. And we live in it, and it causes us stress. And when someone cheated and hurt us in the past, and because of that we don't trust anyone, we are living in the past again. And when we live youthful values because we don't want to grow up, we live in the past because we live values that belong to the past without asking ourselves if they are right. When we are depressed and sad, we live in the past. If our thoughts are often in the future and we talk about how we will be better tomorrow and be happy when we find a better job or a car, we let our aggressive ego run wild. When we say that we will be happy as soon as we pay off a loan, we live in the future. And when we say that we still have to find a better job, we live in the future. And when we say that we can't wait to reach our destination, we live in the future. And when our thoughts keeps us in the future, nervousness and uncertainty arise because, again, the challenge of the ego behind this manifestation does not allow us peace, in this case, our need for control. Ego, rather thoughts, must go to the past or to the future. The ego does not like now, because now we have no problems. Now is gentle and kind to us. The only peace is found in the present moment, and ego cannot exist here, only love. And with every challenge comprehended, we are closer to now. We can become aware of our thoughts when they escape, understand that they are not us and control them. However, it is far more effective to silence the ego and mature than just dealing with thoughts. And maturity itself is mostly defined by our motivation, that is, our conscience. My name is Zoran Salopek, and in the next episode we will talk about our conscience.